Guided. Guided is the roadmap for stepping on board at any point along your life path. My guides showed me how this works. So I'm going to be reading in part of chapter 9 today of Guided uh, about what it feels like when you're being guided. Okay. So, Guided, Guided is available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook format. And I read the book myself. Okay. All right. So, this is a learning. This is what it feels like when you're being guided. You feel like a horse at the racetrack. And once they open the gates, you are off and running. It's a real kind of a hyper energy. You just feel you've got to do something. You feel it's a nervous energy, but a good one. Okay. So here's what led up to it in my life. Interestingly, I got the opportunity to gain some experience when we built our second home. In 1972, Alex told me that the same developer we bought our first home from had another subdivision going about 2 miles away from where we lived. These homes were bigger and more customized, and they were just finishing the model home. We went to see them and bought it based on the same sweat equity arrangement we made with that developer the first time we bought our home from him. We built this new one to live in and keep the first one as an investment and rented it because it was appreciating so quickly. Now remember, this was 1972. This time I handled things much more efficiently. Once we finished it, I added a swimming pool, an outdoor cabana, and landscaping in the front and backyards this time. If you read the earlier one, you'd be laughing with me, all right? It turned out beautifully, but I was even more restless than ever before. So that's what led up to it. That's what it feels like. You would think that at that point in your life, you had a success, you had achieved something amazing, and yet you feel like something's still missing. That's guidance, letting you know this is just the beginning, okay? Don't ever be afraid to follow that guidance that's taking you there, all right? Okay, so here's the next tip in chapter 9. Even when you have no experience and everything appears bizarre to those around you, don't allow that to distract you. It doesn't matter what they think about you. It doesn't matter what they say about you. Move through it like you own the place because nothing can hurt you when you have the constant coaching from your guides. But you need to keep your guidance to yourself. And here's what led up to that in my life. I'm only reading little excerpts out of Guided. At about the time we got our second home, Alex got his general contractor's license and started his own framing company. Together, we got it rolling. I drew the contracts between the general contractors and our framing company. I took care of the accounting, the payroll, collecting the checks each week from the general contractors, and paying all the bills. I was also handling legal aspects of employees' union obligations, insurance, and keeping a close eye on the business profit and losses. So I was only 19 years old at that time. So, and I mean, where did that experience come from? I had no formal education to do any of this. Yet I was guided to move that way and I had the support I needed. I just knew what to do and when to do it. It defies reasoning, you guys. That's why it's important that you write down the guidance that's coming through. Because if you don't, see, I had this guidance since I was a baby. Chapter 1, 20 months old. It starts there. It actually starts before that. So I came in with it, okay? So you guys are trying to make that connection to your guides now. You need to start documenting what's going on in your life on a day-to-day basis. You're not conscious of really what's going on in your life until you do that. And here's the next tip. As you progress in your relationship with your guides, more helpers will show up. If there was any danger, your guides would step in by warning you or even creating an intervention. So the things where you hear people say, oh, it could be the devil, it could be you guys, I'll tell you what, the only devil I ever ran into is already in this life. They're not from the other side. I've never, ever had a negative experience, nothing but loving, consistent, intelligent support. The problems happen in this world. That's just another reason you need these guys on your side. Start writing in your journals. All right. So here's what led up to that. This is a little bit longer because of what happened. That same year, in the summer of 1972, we were framing a subdivision of duplexes when distant visitors from some other place appeared in the sky. It was just before daybreak, and the carpenters were unloading everything from our trucks. Once Alex's truck was unloaded, I got a telepathic message that said, "Lie down in the back of your truck so you won't blink your eyes when we leave." At that point, they hadn't even arrived yet, let alone left. See how this works? You could reason yourself right out of one of these things and miss what comes next. And here's what came next. But I knew enough to lie down like they told me to. Almost immediately, a UFO showed up and hovered right over me. Their ship was round and silver, with multicolored lights spinning clockwise around the perimeter. Inside the perimeter, a separate set of multicolored lights was spinning counterclockwise. They started speaking to me telepathically. So I spoke back to them the same way I always have. I asked them to take me out of here. Even with things going so well, I knew there were better places to be. They told me about certain things that I needed to do and that I couldn't leave because I wasn't finished yet. They told me not to tell anyone about this encounter until 1986. Now that was 1972. As soon as the sun broke over the crest of the distant mountain, the ship took off so fast that I would have missed it had I blinked my eyes. They wanted me to see them leave, which is why they wanted me to lie down in the back of the truck in the first place. I got up, and all the carpenters, including Alex, were still looking up, frozen in position. Just like you would see in a movie, it was for real. I asked them what they saw, and all of them had seen what I had seen. This confirmed that I wasn't the only one who saw it. Then, like getting a bucket of cold water thrown in their faces, Alex ordered them all back to work, and that's what they did. The next day, same place, same time, same carpenters. I asked them if they remembered what they saw in the sky the day before. They all looked at me like they should be able to remember something, but couldn't. Not one of them remembered anything about what happened the day before. Not even Alex. Once again, it was between me and them. So I'm going to go back to that tip. As you progress in your relationship with your guides, more helpers will show up. Okay? Don't let it scare you. There's nothing to be afraid of. But you must write these incidences down in your journal. You must, because you won't be conscious of it. You won't be sharp. You won't be aware. You won't be present if you don't train yourself to do that. And it's the journal writing that's going to train you to do that faster than anything else. And that's it. Next week, we'll be working in chapter 10, okay? So, contemplate how guidance is always working in your life. Join me again Saturday, February 6th at 1 p.m. Pacific time on my Facebook page, my Facebook timeline, and my YouTube channel. Use the search term newborn Linda Deer. Remember, you are never alone and always being guided. We'll see you next week.